The latest project is an 14mm gauge Manning Wardle Jubilee 1987. It's an Agenoria kit, an old Agenoria kit, but with a scratch-built chassis, again radio control. Now it's almost finished, so I'll just be going through a few bits. I'm just in the process of securing the motor into the chassis. Now I've done my usual milliput motor bed. See if you can see that. And I'm using one of my last precious K20 gear motors, which at the moment is fully meshed with the axle. Let's see if you can see that. Hope you can. And I'm just about to epoxy it in with a small dab of epoxy. Bear with me. Now, my favourite epoxy is Deltang. Now, I used to buy the tubes of it, and I used to buy it fairly frequently. I nowadays buy it like this. I say I buy it like this if I do it frequently. These are the first bottles I've ever bought. It's about £20 for these two bottles, and it seems to last forever. One of the joys of this is it much easier and cleaner to dispense. Now I just put down a bit of masking tape on whatever surface, and I squeeze a little bit out, and it's just not messy like tubes were, and it's much easier to put exactly what I want down, so there's much less mess, much easier to control. And I think I worked it out at about 1/6 of the price to buy anyway, and I use less of it, and it's, you know, it's one of those things that's a win-win-win situation all ways round. So, quick mix there, and I'm just going to put a couple of dabs on the gear motor, and that'll hold it very well. But of course it also enables me to just cut the epoxy out and remove the gear motor should I have need to. Which is, you know, it happens once in a blue moon, but I obviously don't want to destroy the chassis in that eventuality. So there we are, literally just 4 small blobs which will work their way down, and as far as the glue's concerned, that'll harden enough in about 5 minutes, and I can just peel away that masking tape with the glue on and throw that away, and I've got no mess. So the rest of this project, let's have a look. This is the body. Let me move the camera. Bear with me. Okay, this is the thing built up. It's an etched brass kit. It's a good etched brass kit. It's not perhaps for the beginner. I had to work fairly hard at it, but it's gone together really quite well. The Lost Wax brass castings were extremely welcome on this. Let's see if I can zoom in. things like the injectors, that sort of thing. There were a couple of less, slightly duff castings, which I replaced with some commercial ones, some Laurie Griffin castings, which are absolutely beautiful. The lubricators there were from him, and I also got some very, very nice gauge glass fittings from him as well. Not very easy to see, but very, very well worth it. Now, in fact, these I polished up in a needle magnetic polisher. It's a jewellery tool, and it's for polishing very, very fine castings and things, rings, jewellery, etc. And it doesn't destroy the detail, which is very useful. And it helps me preserve the detail. When it comes to painting this sort of thing, I tend not to use Marscol. I just buy Copydex glue, which you can get from Hobbycraft and anywhere else, and it's just sold as a general purpose glue, which is a latex base, and I think Copydex is as well. And of course it's about, £5 for a much bigger container, and you just paint that on, do your spraying or painting, what have you, and just peel it off in exactly the same way as Marscol, and that worked very well. And of course I did all the pipe work, the injectors and the spectacle frames, because of course they were soldered on before painting. That went very well. Another little thing I did on this, to get a final polish on things like the spectacles, but also other small details. Very difficult to polish that sort of thing. I'm just going to put this down a second, bear with me. Very difficult to polish that sort of thing without disturbing its neighbour, if you see what I mean. So I tend to use Duraglit as like that. Well, it's Brasso, but it's the same stuff. And what I do when I know I've got a job like that coming up is I get a cocktail stick and I poke it in the Duraglit down the side or what have you, and I let it soak up the liquid from the Brasso or Duraglit for a few hours, so it becomes saturated with the polish, and then when I'm ready, I can just bring it out, and this is just a normal one, but you can then use the tip of the polish soaked cocktail stick and just polish your fine detail with the cocktail stick that is soaked in polish, and that works really well, and you can get very fine control without damaging your neighbouring paintwork or anything like that. And then a final quick buff up with a kitchen towel or something like that. That worked really well. I had a very tragic accident with this halfway through its build, and I dropped it and I crushed all the cab back and all the rest. The back plate of the cab was bent all the way in, and all this side was a crumpled mess and all the rest. and the foot plate was bent up and all the rest. And I straightened it out very carefully and methodically, progressively, straightening it out bit by bit, and managed to get it back. One of the tools I used was this pair of pliers. Now, unlike many others, you can see this is, I hope you can see, this has flat jaws. They're used in jewellery, but you can get them from places like Eileen's Emporium and that sort of thing. And plain jaws as well. And you can use this for flattening things out carefully. Very, very useful bit of kit. And by very, very careful progressive straightening, I was able to get this back, and it's more or less good as new. In fact, there are still some sort of dents in the back plate, which I really liked. It's got a worn, bashed appearance, scale bashed appearance, and I was thinking about just making a new back plate, which I could have easily done, but I really liked the appearance of this, so I kept it. And that was absolutely a matter of choice. I really liked that appearance. Mechanically with this, I don't know if I can get it, you'd see it, but I've cut out the bottom of the boiler there, and within the boiler and the tank there is lead pushed to each side and glued in with epoxy, and there is a slot all the way down in there, and that slot will take this battery. This is at least in theory, it's a 1000 milliampere hour battery, which will certainly give this a full day's operation, possibly even as much as 2, possibly. And this battery will sit completely hidden in that slot, and I've already put a fuse, which is this grey wire, and that little black bit at the tip of my finger is the resettable fuse itself, and a connector to plug it to the rest of the electrics. So that will sit within the boiler there, and the open firebox there will accommodate the receiver and the connectors. But that is the completed body for the Jubilee, which is a very, very nice little loco. Now, this has got to be about dry now. This chassis is built in my normal way, working outside frames. It's all cut on my step craft because I can, but you can use you could cut it out by hand with a piercing saw in the normal way. It's all silver soldered because I like it. It's easier. Once you've silver soldered a joint, you can keep silver soldering, and it doesn't fall apart, which is very, very useful. So I like silver soldered construction, and I use a silver soldered paste. Comes in a syringe like this, and it's an easy flow, so it's a lower melting point silver solder, and I use torches, small torches, let me go on, this sort of thing to provide the heat. I sometimes use 2 of these, 1 in each hand, depending on the job that needs doing. What you see is what you get. Outside frames, it's actually got proper bearings in. It's a compensated chassis, very simple 3-point compensation. There's a bar so the front axle rocks. It's a little bit pointless with radio control because I don't have to worry about track pickups. The wheels are insulated, so it isn't going to short out the track if it's running in conjunction with DCC or anything like that. We've got some representative inside motion there, which you can probably see between the frames. That's just for looks. The slide bars always used to give me a little bit of trouble when it came to soldering them on. When I was doing them, when I was building kits, things like that. So nowadays, I literally just make them in one piece as a U shape with the correct gap in the middle and solder the U onto the loco. And then when it's firmly soldered, I then cut the end off, leaving the individual bars in place. And it's just so much easier as far as handling is concerned. Very, very much easier. So that's how I personally do that. The firebox there, the blowdown valve was simply made out of a little bit of brass bar, put in a Proxon drill and tapered with a needle file as it rotated to make the body, and then cross-drilled carefully, and a piece of annealed brass, probably about, I don't know, 1.4 or something like that diameter, soldered in to form the actual tube, and a little square filed on top for that. The washout plugs are very simply 10BA brass bolts with the heads cut off and a square filed on the shaft, if you see what I mean. So it's there's just a little bit of filing involved with that, and then I drilled and tapped the firebox 10BA and just threaded them in and soldered the back, so they came up quite nicely. And then that's, sorry, I can't see the screen well enough to see how well or not that's showing up. And then that's painted with gunmetal, talcum powder, and some rust colours. And that's sort of that. You can see the wires brought up, which will emerge into the smoke box there, into the firebox, I beg your pardon. Those two are the motor wires, and these three are from there's a switch there. That is an on-off switch, and then we have a teeny little 1.25 millimeter switch socket there for charging, and they're all wired together, and the wires brought through, and I shall be soldering a plug on a couple of those wires, and the rest go to the receiver. And the receiver is, if I can pick it up, that little thing, Deltang Rx41 it was configured for the TX2, was it, or no, TX20, and I managed to reprogram it yesterday to work with a TX22, which is the selector version, and I reprogrammed it using the Prog 3 programmer, which was actually surprisingly simple, and it's brilliant. So in fact, this is, for me, it's a recycled receiver, and that works, and that's going on, and there's plenty of room for that. So hopefully by the end of the day that'll all be together and finished, but I do have some real work to do today as well. So that is the project I've been working on recently, a very nice 014 Jubilee 1987, and this is intended to operate on the next layout, which is the Sparrow. So a nice low voltage gear motor driving through bevel gears is a good solution for low speed locos in particular, and also higher speed locos if you choose the right gear motor. It's very